Welcome to the Bloodcast, the podcast where we talk about superhero gadgets and technology that's made its way into the real world. I'm your host, the Blood Spider, and this week I'm joined with a personal friend of mine, Johnathan Franz. What's up, John?
Hello, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for coming on. This is our first Bloodcast where another live person is actually here in the studio, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice that instead of having to do it over the phone, which you suggested a couple times, I can actually just come over and chill out with you for a little bit and talk about Spider-Man and other stuff.
Yeah, so John is not an inventor per se in the Spidey community, but he is an avid comic book fan and just a general Spider-Man fan.
I'd consider myself a Marvelite.
Yeah, I would too. So basically, this episode, what we wanted to do was have a little friendly debate on who is the better live-action Spider-Man. And I know this is a very heated, touchy subject for the Spidey community, but I think we have two great minds, at least in the Spider-Man lore, that can have a really good intellectual debate about this.
Well, I think that a lot of it comes down to which Spider-Man you're thinking of, which one you started with. You've got Raimi, you've got Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, and then if you really want to get technical, you've got the old ones from like the 70s.
Yeah, and
live
then
action.
Got Neil Patrick Harris. I know voiced him.
Well, when it comes to voice actors, there's been so many who have done
Bell
so many. Yeah, that was
uh,
fun for a while, Drake Bell. Unfortunately, the Neil Patrick Harris show was not very good, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was MTV. MTV dramedy with Spider-Man.
Yeah, which obviously everyone needs more of. But yeah, I would think that Tobey Maguire probably plays the best representation of Spider-Man, Sam Raimi. The story that they give you, along with his his portrayal of Peter Parker versus Spider-Man, which is a big difference in my mind. You got to be able to play both the nerdy outcast that's always down on his luck, and the snappy, quick-witted superhero who does his best in any given situation.
Which, personally, I didn't really feel too much of the snappy wittiness from Tobey as amongst the others. I mean, he had a couple of zingers, don't get me wrong. He did have a couple of them, but not as much as you would think, Spider-Man would be having during a fight. I mean, because at least if we're looking at 616 Peter, he could be in the face of extreme tragedy and mayhem, and he's still gonna crack a joke.
Yeah, and that's what he's known for, and that's what makes Spider-Man great. Spider-Man is that person we all want to be that looks into the worst situation and is hopeful and has the power to do it and back itself up. But I think when it comes down to, I don't know, the wisecracks and the snappy comebacks and all of that, he didn't hit as hard as Andrew Garfield. He hits probably a little weaker than Tom Holland, but some of those shots, some of the movements, the actual way he portrays Spider-Man in his posing and in the way that he expresses so much emotion through that suit, which didn't have all the animatronics as Tom Holland and everything like that. So he did a really good job as Spider-Man, but he really shines as Peter Parker.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say, especially after Peter got his powers, at least in the comic book world, he was a little bit more confident with himself. He obviously was playing.
Well, you notice that he starts talking to Gwen Stacy more.
Yeah,
you notice
right.
that he actually, and once he starts speaking to Gwen Stacy, you notice that Mary Jane starts paying more attention to him. Especially old school comics. You see the first time that he fights, I want to say it's Vulture, but I could be wrong. Not Vulture, sorry, Shocker. And if I'm wrong, anybody in the comments can tell me, but Shocker was one of his first villains, and it was just a normal guy who had a normal suit, and they talked, and he realized that like normal everyday people are making these decisions to do bigger and grander things, and that gave him a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and that was one thing, that I think the Raimi, at least how that writing of Peter Parker neglected on was that didn't really shine through. That you really didn't see that aspect, because I mean, even when I think it was Spider-Man 2, when he went back to college to finish his stuff and he drops the briefcase and everybody's just like literally walking past him like he's not there and stepping on him and smacking him with their bags and everything, and that, well, that's not really like a sign of I guess class or standard. That's just like still a sign of being a nobody. You don't exist in these people's minds. You're irrelevant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, so not to say that point doesn't matter, but in the same movie, you've got the emotional outcome that comes from like Doc Ock.
Yeah.
And the emotional part of when he's telling Mary Jane, I am Spider-Man, but I can't be with you.
Right.
So there are parts where you get that beautiful Spider-Man-esque feeling of,
oh yeah,
it could be all good, but because you're Peter Parker, it's not gonna be good.
Right, exactly.
And
that I do think it painted extremely well. But that's, and my fans, you guys have been listening for a while now. You know that my favorite Spider-Man is Andrew Garfield, because I just feel like, at least in a teenager's standpoint, he encapsulated what it would be, if a teenager got bitten by a spider. Obviously Sam Raimi's take on Spider-Man was his own, what if Spider-Man was in the real world type situation. He didn't really stay too true to the comics, but
absolutely,
yeah, but
well, you put Spider-Man in college immediately,
right, exactly,
which was, I think, a good move for the movie. But I understand what you mean, where we lose a lot of that innocence that
right
Andrew Garfield kind of gives us, those like weird, awkward teenage moments. I like Andrew Garfield. Nobody give me too much hate for this, but Andrew Garfield is much too cool of a person to be Peter Parker. Yeah, there's the scene where he's skateboarding down the street, just grinding and doing stuff.
That doesn't make you cool.
But it does. In some certain way, Peter Parker in any generation has always been written as the loner outcast. Nowadays, skateboarding is very widely accepted, and there's a huge following for it. You just skating down the street are going to run into another skateboarder that's going to want to hang out with you. Yeah. Nobody should want to hang out with Peter Parker, and it's mean, but that's the life he lives, and I think that Stan Lee would agree with that.
I mean, to an extent, because like you have, even in the older comics, like you have seen Peter Parker stand up for kids, and then they eventually become friends or acquaintances, and then they'll later eventually get smaller time villain roles for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, Marvel Comics.
Right, exactly.
We got to come up with new villains every day.
You what really shines about Peter Parker, the character, is that his immense sense of empathy and understanding for the little guy. Mm-hmm. That is an admirable quality that his peers see about him. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and he's smart and he's capable, but all in all, he's also incredibly filled with honor and the sense of responsibility given to him by Uncle Ben.
And that's another thing that I wanted to talk about too, was I feel that the Amazing Spider-Man movies showed a better relationship, and Ben's death was then in turn more impactful than Spider-Man than Raimi's trilogy.
I won't disagree with that.
And I say that because in the Amazing Spider-Man, you know, you see Ben and Peter interact more, number one, than they did in in Spider-Man.
Yeah, you see an actual relationship between a nephew and an uncle and somebody who's lived together and all these things.
But the most important thing, at least what I think, is that there's a scene when Ben goes into Peter's room and they're talking, you know, and he sees Gwen on his computer, and you know, Ben's like, you know I'm not your dad, and you know, basically that car speech, you know, that Ben gave Peter in the Raimi Spider-Man, and you know, Peter rebutted with, you know, you're a pretty great dad, Uncle Ben. You know, don't get that twisted. You know, you might. I have questions about my lineage and my parents.
Yeah. So the concept of them actually having a Uncle Ben that's a father.
Right. Exactly.
And I like that. And then you look at the MCU where they haven't even given you an Uncle Ben. Well, sorry, Tony Stark is Uncle Ben.
Well, no, he's not, because
it feels like
Ben. Well, I know, but Ben Parker exists in that universe because in Far From Home, his suitcase has in gold engraving a little
BP.
stamp. Yeah, Ben Parker, and that suitcase gets blown up in the fucking when the water monster thing, I think, comes.
Yeah, I understand that,
and that's it. That's it. That's the only.
That's not enough.
That's what I'm saying.
So the extreme is not having a Ben Parker, and then the other extreme is kind of what you're saying, where they did it very wholesome and friendly. I liked the whole kind of brushing him off because it felt more realistic. I've lived with you forever, so I'm gonna go do this, even though we're supposed to be painting the basement. I felt that. Yeah. I felt that feeling
definitely.
Before, you know? And then to have that heart to heart and to walk away and then to have him perish really meant something, at least to me. And all of this stems, at least in me coming from a pop culture comic book person, me and you have been talking about comics since we were like 12 years old. You love Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
He's your favorite comic. And I have read a ton of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I think that where you fall in line, especially as a comic book person coming into the movies live action, is what Spider-Man did you start with? Which Spider-Man in the comic book age were you dealing with? Were you dealing with him in high school? Were you dealing with him...
Spider-Man.
So you got him fresh.
Yeah, fresh.
You know,
fresh out of the Ultimate Universe. I mean, obviously I knew about like the Amazing Spider-Man and everything like that.
Yeah, and you'd heard of it, you know the stories.
Right. What comics I really like drawn to? I'm like, okay, this is my, especially as a kid, you know, like this is my Spider-Man story. You know
and I think that's why you like the Amazing more. It shuffles off to the Ultimate Universe a little bit more. Raimi's tends to be closer to 616.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. There's a lot of differences, but yeah, I can totally see that. You know, and that's the thing that I also felt like those movies really didn't do too well, was showcase Peter Parker's genius either.
I don't think any even the MCU, which has explained him to be a genius and has showed his technical capabilities, he's one of the top 10 smartest people in the Marvel universe.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, you've got Reed Richards in the Marvel universe, which will be coming up in the MCU soon, hopefully. So you're bringing in, you've got Hank Pym already, you've got Bruce Banner, Tony Stark, you've got some of the big names in there already as the most intelligent people. It's time to start showing off that Spider-Man is intelligent.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before. There's a comic book, unfortunately I don't know which series it is in, but Spider-Man is creating some sort of idea that they could go with, and Reed Richards is ignoring him. But Hank Pym is actually like, hey, you should listen to this kid, he's smart. Reed Richards starts listening to him. If you can get the smartest man in the Marvel Universe to stand in a room with you and take your ideas, you're intelligent.
Oh, yeah. And you know, I know, because obviously you know the story of why they cut the web shooters from The Raimi movies, right?
Remind me.
All right. So for those of you that don't know, one of the because they filmed. There's actually even scenes in the movie that didn't get properly edited out in the final movie where you can see the web shooters that they originally had for the movie. So the first scene after Peter makes the suit, after he makes the web shooters and everything, the first scene that they had was it was like this bank heist. And these guys like they steal a bunch of money from the bank, and then they grapple up the stairwell to a helicopter, and then they're flying through the city and everything. And they're all like, yeah, we got away, flying all high speed, through the city in the helicopter, and then all of a sudden it just fucking stops. And, the guy's fucking trying to push the helicopter forward, and then it just goes back, and you see the whole helicopter.
Yes, I do remember this.
And then it stops. It just stops in midair, and then as the camera pans out, you see it's trapped in a huge spider web in between the Twin Towers.
Yes.
And they, obviously, for respect of 9/11, they just completely had to get rid of that scene. I believe there was even an airplane scene that was
a lot of movies were affected at that time.
Right,
like that.
And so that actually, for whatever reason, Sam Raimi decided to just cut the aspect of web shooters out entirely. Which, okay, I know that there is a lot of Spider-Man comics where he does have organic webbing, but that takes away such a
pinnacle part of his intelligence.
Right, exactly.
Is that he comes up with the web fluid.
Right, he comes up with the web fluid and the web shooter. Now, in the Ultimate Universe, his dad actually came up with the web fluid.
Yes.
And he just figured out how to
use it,
pressurize it in liquid form, and store it in small cartridges and shoot it out.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
it's still a technical achievement.
Oh, yeah.
And so, to bring back into what your channel is about and what your viewers are probably here for, I've seen you for years and years building these different contraptions, web shooters and projectile web shooters and stuff like that. And just the stuff that you've gone through in order to build that, looking up different sort of chemical properties and all of the different, obviously I don't know the words, but like aerosols and O2s and whatever.
Yeah.
But you're a guy. You're a person that I've known my entire life who's researching this. This was a kid in high school who was coming up with formulaic equations that
this is off the dome.
That nobody else, even Tony Stark, has been able to recreate. So that's incredibly impressive. And I get what you mean when you say that you want it to happen in the universe, you want to show it, but along with his technological stuff, we've lost a lot of the darkness that comes in Peter Parker's life. I mean, we look at the comic books and stuff that me and you have read. There's real dark stuff that goes on. There's real consequences to everything he does.
And that's where I felt like the Amazing Spider-Man was going to go. I mean, have you read the plot synopsis that Mark Webb released for Amazing 3?
Yes,
Dude,
I have.
That would have been awesome. Fucking decapitated Norman Osborn's head in a jar, fucking experimented on. That would have been badass.
But is that? I don't know. I think you run into the problem, and I really enjoyed The Amazing 2. We've talked about that a lot of times, and I think Jamie Foxx did a fantastic job.
And we'll get into the villains a little later.
Okay.
That's a specific topic that I wanted to
bring
discuss,
up soon.
Yeah.
So I'll hold off on that thought, but the gist of what I'm trying to say is that it was a little bit more edgy, it was a little bit more darker, but it felt so compressed in every story that you got from them.
Yeah.
And it was really unfortunate because I like a story that can be spread out. And superhero movies have this really bad problem of, and hopefully this will segue into what we're about to discuss, but they kill their villain.
Oh my God, yes. And
immediately.
That was such a problem that I had with the Raimi Spider-Man too, is because they would always kill the fucking villain.
But that's the thing now.
Right.
Everyone gets their villain. Thanos is dead.
Yeah, but I mean, look at how hard it was.
But
And that was a fucking 12-movie arc to kill Thanos.
Yeah, I mean, you make a very good point in that, but he's supposed to be the big bad that never dies.
Right.
And we've already killed him. So can you expect Doc Ock or Vulture
or Green Goblin to be killed off in the first motherfucking movie?
Pretty upsetting. And then to never really get into the Hobgoblin arc, they had the idea, they knew what they wanted to do with it, and then they were like, let's not do it, but pretend like we wanted to.
Yeah. And I even like the whole thing with Harry too, and the sins of the father vibe.
Oh yeah.
That they were
They were doing a good job.
That was amazing. I thought Peter Parker and Harry Osborn's fucking
complicated bromance.
Yeah, that was just throughout that whole series was just amazing to me.
I didn't feel it in the Amazing Spider-Man.
I didn't either, but then it didn't set up that hatred. Because in Spider-Man 2, when Harry found out that Peter was Spider-Man, his instantaneous reaction is still out of no matter what he number one, before he found out, he had it set in his mind that the soonest opportunity he can get to kill Spider-Man, it doesn't matter, it's happening now.
Absolutely.
And when he finds out it's his friend, you don't see anger on his face. You don't see fucking hatred anymore. That goes away. You see betrayal, you see confusion, you see pain and sadness and
good on James Franco for being an actually good actor for that, because he did an amazing job.
But that was at that point in his mind, at least how I like to see it, in his mind, he is no longer mad at Spider-Man. He is completely betrayed by his best friend in the worst possible way, because he still doesn't have all the context clues of what happened, so he still at this moment believes Peter killed my dad, and just all the thoughts and
you say believes, but he killed his dad. Let's be honest.
No. I disagree with that.
Spider-Man, your favorite superhero,
he could have
stopped it. He could have moved it. Could have moved Norman.
Yeah.
And that's the point we're making. At least it sounds like we're on the same page. Is that they just kill their villains? They needed some way to do it, and it's really unfortunate.
It is.
But
it is. It makes it. And I get it, especially for superhero movies back when Spider-Man came out, they didn't know if the studio was necessarily going to give them that green light for the second
one of the first realistic superhero movies,
Yeah, right,
We have to remember that, and I think that's one of the reasons why I like Tobey Maguire so much, is he's the first. He's one of the
nostalgia of it. And I do feel like that is a big reason why that is people's favorite, but I also believe that is a reason why people shit on the new ones the most. Because even I know we haven't talked a lot about Tom Holland, and we'll get there. But I mean, specifically about Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, it just felt like Spider-Man. Literally everything about it felt like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, And
I guess my thing is, and nobody knows Spider-Man as much as you know Spider-Man in my realm of people.
Yeah.
There's a couple people, Sal at Comic Pop, for anybody who's ever interested in reading or learning about Spider-Man a little bit more. That guy is the most intelligent Spider-Man man ever.
Yeah.
But I've heard you say that Andrew Garfield is the best Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
I try to look at it objectively because of how much you know about Spider-Man. And I can't get past some of the storylines. I think that's what it is. Maybe if he was put in a story that I enjoyed more.
And that's what I think happened, at least with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. People think that there was a lot of stuff that didn't make sense, and that like was either a plot hole in the movie or something like that actually wasn't. Like, one of the biggest things was a lot of people say, like, why was Harry so desperate for a cure when it wasn't going to affect him until he was an old man like Norman? That was one of like the big things. But if you really pay attention to that scene when Harry goes into Norman's deathbed, when Norman asks him, let me see your hand, and Harry hands him his hand all shaken, and you see like the
symptoms, it's starting.
And Norman even comments on it, and he's like, it's already started at your young age, and like, then watching his father die, horrible, slow death of a virus what was it called? Retroviral hyperplasia that's the goblin disease.
Yes.
And fucking literally a slow, disgusting, like you literally watch your dad decay disease.
Which you shouldn't laugh at. But
I know. But
it was bad.
It's super impactful, and that's where the desperation came from. Like, I mean, imagine you're this 20-something-year-old supermodel, which rich on top of the world.
That was the point. He was so cool.
Right, exactly. And now you know that you have this disease that not only is it gonna kill your ass in a slow, horrible, painful way, you're also gonna look ugly as fuck throughout the whole duration of it.
Wow, would it be very vain about it? But
so
yes.
That is just, where that level of desperation came from. And as soon as he figured out a small smidgen of an opportunity to save himself, he went head over heels for it, and he used every possible extent that he could do.
But that goes back to specifically the Amazing series felt very rushed.
Oh yeah, I can even agree with that. It was rushed, especially 2 did put a lot in it. They should have
left. That could have been 2 movies.
Yeah, they should have left Electro's arc here and
done the other
and done the death of Gwen Stacy with Harry in another movie,
which would have been great. Because the death of Gwen Stacy is its own thing. Like, that's one of the most famous.
Oh yeah, and don't get me wrong, that scene, even now when I watch that scene, that still hurts.
It hurts only because it's Emma Stone.
No, and Andrew Garfield's acting in that scene is fucking phenomenal.
And I hope, or at least I would assume, that he knows the story of how upset.
Oh yeah.
Like,
and that's another thing too. Was out of the 3 actors, I would say, who was the biggest Spider-Man fan? Because Tobey Maguire even stated before he did not read Spider-Man comics. No. He was not looking to that for inspiration.
Yeah, he was not.
Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man super fan, fucking his whole life reads the comics book sources. Fucking goes to Comic-Con dressed up as Spider-Man. Fucking he's like a legit Spider-Man.
I admit that,
and
that's
so is
true.
Tom Holland too.
But not to an extent.
But not to a certain extent.
So let's do the villains really quick.
Alright. Well, I mean, Willem Dafoe
as the Green Goblin.
Absolutely amazing. That fucking mirror scene with him talking to himself and the Goblin, really shows that
the
fucking
duality.
That cracked fucking psyche of Norman Osborn and the Goblin,
and he also played it such a good way. The parts where he's pretending to be normal. Mm-hmm. And you can see he's just on that cusp of fractured soul.
Right.
But that's the Norman Osborn that becomes president.
Right.
That becomes the head of S.H.I.E.L.D.
But they did that with every villain, though, in Raimi's Spider-Man.
Oh, Doc Ock.
They did that with Doc Ock, but it was the same thing, the tentacles are the alternate personalities.
They failed miserably.
And
with Venom.
Yeah, right. And Raimi will even say the reason for that was because the studio wanted Venom in there and he didn't know the character at all. And I do believe that's because they specifically wanted to stay away from comic books throughout those movies are.
Yeah, but they worked so well in the comic books, which
Yeah.
was funny. Like you're right. They stayed quite a bit away from it, but that didn't mean that it stopped them from actually creating a story that worked very well if it was made into comic books or graphic novels or anything. So except for Venom, which obviously a lot of people have already talked about, to the end people will blame Topher Grayson or the studio or not knowing the character, but it was a bad villain choice.
Yeah.
The problem, and this is the one that I'll get into now, is when you get to The Amazing, the villain choices that we've had were probably really poor.
I disagree, man.
But played exceptionally well.
I thought that the choice, at least in the first one, the choice of the lizard, because of how they were going with the storyline of Peter's parents, I thought that the lizard was a perfect first villain, especially when those movies really tried to encapsulate the science of Spider-Man and how
and I think that's what you like most about
exactly. Oh yeah, hands down. But and how it worked on a genetic level, and as to why these cross-species experiments even happened in the first place to cure man-made diseases, which we are actually doing in the real world. So it's like it was very refreshing to see extreme comic book level, never can happen fantasy superhero being portrayed in a way that that sounds like it might be able to work. Obviously it's all bullshit.
I don't know enough about medicine to say that it doesn't. So,
but I mean, even how they explained the spider bite was like, that it was like a retrovirus that went into Peter's body, made by his father's DNA, mixed with these
spiders,
radioactive, genetically enhanced fucking spiders.
It was all interesting.
But and why the lizard was such a good villain, because now you have a villain that is literally based in a realm of that
science.
Well, specifically cross-species genetics,
manipulation,
and why? Because he. And I wish, because Rhys Ifans, or however you say that guy's name, there was a bunch of scenes that he had with Billy, with Kurt Connor's son, where like he wanted to pick him up, and throw him in the air like he was a son, and he was like imagining this, and like then it cuts to that scene of him in the mirror, with his
he just
arm.
doesn't have his
and
arm.
I wish they didn't cut that, because that was like you see why he was willing to go to that
Such
extent.
A length.
He wanted to feel like a man again.
They're played super well.
Yeah.
The character choice, as I've stated, I'm not for. I think Electro was even kind of a bad choice in the second one, but
I'll get to that.
We'll talk about it here in a second, and that will hopefully lead us into the MCU where we talk about everything else. But Doc Connors is one of those characters that if you don't have his entire backstory to make you really care about him,
right,
you will never get the full experience of
he's
the lizard.
He's
a crazy guy who turned himself into a lizard.
Right.
Why would you do that?
And he wants to turn everybody else into a lizard.
Well, that's later on.
But that's the same psychological flip that happens in a lot of Spider-Man villains.
But it wasn't written as well as Tobey Maguire's script. And I think everybody in the Tobey Maguire universe played their part just a little bit better. They had more except for, I'll stand by this, and anybody can at me at this, Mary Jane, done by Kirsten Dunst, is so bad that it makes Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker bad.
Yeah.
And,
it's dude, fuck this bitch.
She is not worth it if you listen to me, Peter. There's a chick named Black Cat I need you to meet. She looks a lot like Gwen Stacy. Really cool.
No, that was if we're talking about fucking real villains, Mary Jane Watson was fucking the biggest villain of the Raimi trilogy.
She was psychologically tortured.
Hell yeah, she made him lose his fucking powers.
That's true. You never.
She gave him fucking PTSD and made him
She
lose
gave him
his fucking
superhero
powers.
ED from pure disappointment.
Like, fuck,
I swear
man.
this never happens.
Kissing astronauts in front of him and like, you know, like, sorry, like he straight up told you, like, look, I really love you, I do, but do you see what I have to deal with? Like, look at me, we are on a fucking crane, a building
Like
almost fell on
some
you.
crazy guy took you. That was our friend's dad.
Yeah. And
Dude.
he literally made the sun in a warehouse. This is what I have to deal with. Like, you can't be a part of
my
this.
life.
So, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna kiss this fucking, your boss's son, rich astronaut looking, good looking, sexy man in front of you, and fucking...
And then immediately decide that I don't want to be with him.
Yeah, and then leave him on his wedding day.
Yeah.
Like, wow, you are a cunt. Holy shit.
So there you go. Worst villain of any any Spider-Man movie ever has been Mary Jane Watson from the Raimi series. So let's move on to the Electro, because you love.
Oh my god,
Electro.
I love Electro. See, and everybody gives him so much fucking hate. So okay, so one of the big things is that first scene. Well, not the first scene, but well, yeah, it's the first swing scene when Spider-Man's swinging through the city, stopping Rhino and fucking trying to get the Oscorp truck.
That was fun. I wish they had kept Rhino.
So here's the thing. So, you know how in that scene a lot of cars get flipped over, there's a lot of fucking mayhem and destruction and shit, and people say, like, oh, Spider-Man just let all those people die.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
like this is a Hollywood movie, you guys, like, if there's not a death of like a physical representation of death on screen, that means that nobody
They just
died.
got it.
Yeah.
If
like,
anybody, any of the people listening to this, if you've ever seen an old Tarzan movie with Brendan Fraser, nobody dies in this movie. They just get really bad boo-boos.
Yeah.
So they make it to the hospital, people. Don't
Right.
worry.
Yeah. So that's a lot of things that people say was, oh, Spider-Man let those people die so that he can crack jokes to Rhino and stuff. That's not the case.
You've played the Spider-Man PS4 game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What's really cool about it, and something that they took a lot of time and effort into thinking about, say you're Spider-Man and you just knock someone off a building.
Mm-hmm.
If you go and find that person, he's hanging there. You don't kill anyone in that game, except for when you obviously do because of the finishing moves and stuff like that. But
yeah, you fool pops.
yeah, they're dead. You guys could just be honest with each other. That guy died.
Quick pause. If you guys don't know what the fool pop is, that's the signature name that we gave to a very common Spider-Man move that didn't have a name.
Yeah.
But it's when he either jumps up in the air or whatever. Basically, it's when he webs you with two streams of web and flips you, so you make like a U shape in the air, and he slams you down on the ground. And
You're dead.
yeah, basically every time that happens, you're dead.
Let's just be honest with each other here. The flip bop, I'm always a big fan of that
It's
one.
the flip bop, because that would be like the sound in comics that you would draw,
Oh, absolutely. The onomatopoeia.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
But yeah, so it's yes, if that accident actually happened in real life, those people would probably be fucking dead. But because this is a Hollywood blockbuster, it's not signified that anything happened to those people.
Yeah, if they didn't die in front of you, just assume they're
So
okay.
now the introduction of Max Dillon in The Amazing Spider-Man.
Which was a good choice. Max Dillon, Electro, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't go with any of the other routes where they had him as like a villain first.
Oh, yeah, no.
Which is great.
He was, and this is what I love so much about it, is because Max and Peter's lives were basically identical.
They were close.
Yeah, I mean...
They ran parallel.
Yeah, right. Both of them are these social outcast geniuses that are neglected by society. Nobody sees their true worth, and all they want to do is help. And they want to make good resources and use their knowledge for the greater good. Both of them are like that, and they share that vision. And, you know, but you see automatically, you know, when Max is first on screen, he's talking to himself, he's very sporadic. Mm-hmm. You can see there is a level of hyperactiveness, you know, in his person, as opposed to every other person on the street.
Yeah, okay, I'll see what you... I was going to say that he was a little, you know, weird, but hyperactive is a nice word.
So... Already depicting him on screen as, you know, he's a little bit out there, right?
Yeah.
So when Spider-Man then saves him, and then takes the time to web his blueprints up, fix his hair, say his name to him, and tell him, you're my eyes and ears out here.
Yeah,
right?
the nice Spider-Man thing to do.
Okay, and then now this is where the first time on screen where you see the first glimpse of Max's delusions, and he's like, "You need me," you know. That line in his face, and good on Jamie Foxx for capturing that.
Well, he's a great actor.
That's the first time you really see that poke out of Max's personality a little bit.
Yeah.
And then he goes into work. Then you see nobody there has any regard for him, even though he is the one that designed the fucking power grid that Oscorp uses to power the entire city. You know,
he's
that
incredibly important.
Right, that was his design, and he's just being neglected. I mean, he probably makes good money being at Oscorp, but...
Well, if you look at his apartment...
Right, exactly. He's not making that much, and as much as he should be, especially being an electrical engineer designer of the power grid. Right. And, so, you know, then you see Alistair Smythe, you know, and that was a little cool Easter egg.
That was fun.
You know, that he comes in and he's just basically...
The Amazing Spider-Man probably is some of the better Easter eggs of all of them.
Yeah, there's so much little stuff.
MCU's doing really good with that, but that's, again, topic for soon. But I liked the Easter eggs. Like I said, I would have loved to see Rhino be a little bit bigger of a part.
I mean, yes, but I'll get into that after Electro with Rhino. But, so, you know... You see Smythe just parading into Max, and then at the end of the day, what happens? You find... I think this might be the next day. I can't really remember. It was... was that day the same day that was his birthday?
That was his birthday.
That was his birthday? Okay,
yeah, and then he goes home, talks about how it's his birthday, and then it's the next day.
Okay. His birthday is the next day when he goes into work. And, you know, he sees Smythe again, that he tells him that he's got to stay... You know, after work and everything like that, and you know, when he's in his apartment that next day, you see
he's going crazy.
He's fucking nuts. He baked himself a cake, which another cool Easter egg was the cake was yellow, was white and green around it, and it had little yellow electric sparks on it.
That was I noticed that. But gave him his original colors too.
Then you see him on screen, and now he made a shrine of Spider-Man, and he's literally talking to himself, and then responding to himself in like a Dark Knight copycat-esque voice of Spider-Man. So now you see, oh, this guy's crazy. He's delusional. He now believes that him and Spider-Man are a team, and they're best friends, and they talk to each other, and he baked him a cake, and like all this stuff.
That was always very weird.
So but this is what I'm saying, because you know a lot of fucking people say that there was no reason for Max's flip, you know, in his head for why he turned, basically, and okay, so. I'm just gonna break it down like this. So you are this electrical genius, right? You design your company's, you design a power grid for your company. They use it. They give you no credit, no bonus, no raise, no nothing for it, and you're still this second-rate employee basically for them. And you get told that you have to stay on past your birthday, you know, to work on something else that nobody else cares about, that you're the only one that can take care of.
Yeah.
It fucks up. You die. you die. Yeah, you die. But just by fucking the happening stance, you come back to life as a being of pure electricity.
Well, that's what happens when you live in the Marvel universe.
Right, exactly.
But go on.
Only running on instinct at this. You're confused. You literally wake up in a crematorium, and you're fucking confused. Everything's wigging out, but all you know is that you feel like shit right now, and you need power. That's all you can fucking feel in your bones, in your.
Yeah, because he's doesn't have a charge at that.
Right, exactly. So what does he do? He follows the power, right? This is all instinctive things. You see this happening when he goes and touches the car light, and then like you see in Electrovision, basically, he sees all the power going into the middle of the city.
Electrovision is pretty great. All right.
And then, oh my god, that was another thing that I loved about those movies was the POV shots, the Spidey POV.
Yeah, some of those were good.
Because that was just one thing I've always wanted to see as a kid and experience was like, what would it be like literally looking through his lenses while he's fucking doing all his crazy ass parkour and swinging and shit, and that movie did it great. That was fucking awesome.
Hardcore Henry.
Yeah, Hardcore Henry was cool too.
It's a really great version of that where you're just like, man.
Yeah.
I'm so cool right
now. Yeah, I think that movie is a little too looky, you know?
Yeah, it's a little motion sick.
Yeah, you gotta, there's gotta be a, a certain level where you're actually not on somebody's head, so like, the camera needs to pan a little slower.
Yeah. Basically.
But anyway, so, the whole city part happens in Times Square, right? Mm-hmm. Where now Electro is
taking all the power.
Yeah, he's taking all the power, and when a cop comes up to him and's like, hey, stop, you see him like, okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening to me.
Yeah.
But, just out of fear and happening, the cop fucking shoots him, and, the bullets fucking don't hit him because of the heat from the electricity, and then he flips the car over, all of this is happening, and he's just freaking out, and he's like, not trying to do anything.
I get that.
So now enters Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
Spider-Man comes in, and Max recognizes him immediately, and you see, more delusions of Max, and he clearly tells him, he's like, I don't know what, Max tells Spider-Man, I don't know what's happening to me, I don't want them to keep shooting at me, and Spider-Man's like, I can totally tell, I know that you're afraid, just come with me, we'll go talk. And Max totally backs down, 100%. He's like, yeah, let's go talk and figure this out, like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Totally backs down, Spider-Man totally diffuses the situation, and that was because Spider-Man
thinks they're best friends.
Right, yeah, he thinks they're best friends, and Spider-Man went into that delusion a little bit. And then, they shoot him and everything, and the most key thing here is where I think the at least mental flip of Max comes in. So the sniper shoots him, and then Max zaps the billboard or whatever thing that he's on, and then Spider-Man webs Max. Right? Spider-Man webs him to just try and stop it, right? And then that blasts Spider-Man back and everything. But in Max's brain, Spider-Man just attacked him with the cops.
Yeah.
Max did not throw the first punch. Max was ready to back down. He got shot, and then Spider-Man hit him. Yeah. Spider-Man webbed him. Right? So now this is where you see the flip in Max, and
so
like,
why are you attacking?
Yeah, and when it shows Spider-Man, all on the screen, it goes into Max's head, and you see him, like, all the people are yelling at him, and he's like telling him to shut up. And then even in the score, you hear, they lied to me, they shot at me, they hated me, now Spider-Man is my enemy. Like, that literally is in the score as, like, Max, like, the little man in his head, And that's the flip. That's what happens. He feels now completely betrayed by his best friend, so he goes all at him. And that was the flip. And then, not only that, he loses the fight, and he gets put in a fucking torture prison. Where they're just like experimenting on him and holding him underwater with a bunch of electrodes, and whatever those things were, fucking holding him underwater throughout the duration of that. That is a torture museum, dude.
Nobody said that the raft is a good place.
No, that was Ravencroft.
Was that Ravencroft?
Yeah, that was Ravencroft.
That's even worse. You don't want to end up there. It's not as bad as DC's Blackgate.
But so my point is that even with Max's delusions, he was still a very good mirror of Peter. But Max, in my opinion, his whole thing was showing what happens when you have great power and don't use it responsibly. When you don't use it responsibly. When you have all of your ducks are in a row and they all get fucking knocked down by the man and by shit that you can't handle or shit that happens to you or people that walk all over you or whatever. Like Spider-Man who takes it and keeps going for the greater good.
Yeah.
Electro decided to...
Nah, I'm done with this.
Yeah, I'm done with this. I am the power one. I'm taking control of the city. You know, and why he fed into Harry Osborn was because Harry, again, in desperation for everything else that's happening, now knows the one guy in this city that might have a chance to stand up against Spider-Man, a being of pure electricity. And finds out that they literally buried it and Oscorp framed Harry for doing it. You know, all this shit that was happening, and like I can go into it.
I know, it was a lot.
But it wasn't convoluted, I don't think. It was all understandable.
I've said that, but I lean back to it was compressed.
Yes, it was definitely compressed.
And we never got a third.
No, which sucked because they did leave it open for
they did
really good opportunity for a third with the Sinister Six and.
I'd love to see a good Sinister Six.
Oh my god, yes.
I would. So. Now that we've basically explained the entire Amazing Spider-Man movie, our least favorite, collectively, is the MCU. And now, which is funny because the MCU is good.
Yeah,
I don't hate the MCU.
I like Tom Holland. I like the suits. I like the personality of the Spider-Man.
Yeah, everything's fine.
I love it, but you know his character arc is perfect for Miles Morales.
But if you haven't noticed, that's what this is. MCU, from a comic book's standpoint, is the ultimate universe.
Yeah.
Everything's playing out the exact same way, basically, and it will give everyone at the end of this a chance, in my opinion, to be like, oh, we joked, it wasn't 616, now we have to change all of our actors to new ones, but we can start the stories over.
Right.
So they're going to just portray this as ultimate. And it makes sense, I don't have a problem with that, and I agree with you, suits, cool, I liked seeing the Iron Suit. I think he does a great job at being Peter Parker. He's a little too friendly and a little too popular, but whatever. I think he does a great job as being Spider-Man. He makes good quirks. He fits in with the team really well. He gets good villains, but something about it feels too Randy Newman. Too middle of the road. He can't be my favorite.
So, you know what? It's, at least for me, it is, and it's because of the comics, but never in Peter Parker's history of a character has he ever seen Tony as a father.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Yeah, you have to, because
he's the Ben Parker.
He would. I mean, there's been so many times in comics where those two have had literally just completely.
I think they took the idea of Civil War.
Yeah.
At least in the beginning, and they took it way too far. Even early on in the actual comic book Civil War, Peter Parker is. I don't think we should be doing this, but Tony Stark has helped me, and I have so much respect for him that I'm going to go along with it for a while. But he quickly gets out of that. They made him...
Because they both have way different ideologies on life.
They do.
They do. I mean, Peter Parker is your everyman. Tony Stark is a fucking billionaire.
Tony Stark is a futurist.
No, he is, but I'm talking about basically in terms of class. They're on two. They have been their whole lives. They have been on two completely separate things. There's been times in Peter's life where he may not know if he's going to be able to eat dinner tonight. You know, there's been times he's had to go through the struggle of every day.
He's eating ramen dinners.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he has had to fucking do bullshit and live his life and fucking work and grind and still be a fucking superhero, you know? And
yeah. But
Tony Stark doesn't do that.
He sells pictures of himself
to
a newspaper. He's his own paparazzi.
Yeah.
That's not...
Can you get pictures of Spider-Man?
I can.
Where are they?
There's this thing.
You don't have any pictures
of
Spider-Man.
It's called Google. You look up Spider-Man
That
pictures.
anybody can do that. That's not what sells papers, John. We need Spider-Man.
Action shots.
We need Spider-Man caught in the fucking act. Okay? I need to see Spider-Man mugging an old lady. I need to see Spider-Man robbing a bank. Okay, do you have any of these pictures of Spider-Man?
No, Jonah.
Okay, then you are fired.
Yeah. So, hold on, and it's something that we have to talk about really quick. Who's the best live-action J. Jonah Jameson?
Oh my! Who is the best live-action J. Jonah Jameson? J.J. Abrams, dude.
J.J. Abrams, you mean J.K. Simmons?
Yeah. What the fuck? Yeah, J.K. Simmons.
But yes, he is. He is a huge. He's the living embodiment of that.
He does it perfectly.
He does.
And that's why he fucking switched over to the MCU, is because everybody knows, everybody in Marvel knows, everybody in Hollywood
what are you gonna
knows,
do? Hire someone else?
Yeah, that
who's the guy that's like, yeah, I'll take that job?
You know what? The only way I think to be able to do it classy would be if you couldn't get him. If you could not get him, it would have to be like one of those fucking silhouette behind the office glass door scenes, and then a voice actor who would
Who's real close.
Who's real close at his voice.
Classy.
Yeah, that would be the only classy way to do it, because you can't.
He's perfect.
Yeah, you can't pick anybody else.
So, back to the actual. So Tom Holland, just too middle of the road for me. He's just not getting the script for you. Is it kind of what it sounds like?
You know what I think it is?
Oh well, you don't like the father.
He's too reliable on his tech. I mean, you see that kind of in Homecoming, where it's stripped away from him, but then by the end of the movie he has the suit again with the advanced Tony Stark magic
Yeah, now
AI.
he's way better.
Yeah, and then in the next movie he has fucking Edith, and it's just that's not the level of Peter Parker
that you want to see.
Right.
You want to
especially not for being so young. If they wanted to take that role with him, they should have fucking hired Andrew Garfield back and put him in a longer timeline to where now he's fucking Dr. Parker or fucking Peter.
Oh, from New Horizons and all
Industries.
that. Oh, but that's after. You'd have to do the whole Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah, but they don't have to show that. They could have just brought him into the MCU.
Yeah, but how do you?
Like
you'd have to do backstory.
How did you
become? Because nobody knows those stories. Me and you know comics.
Yeah,
the listeners.
That's true.
Prove me wrong. Talk about it in the comics all you want. If you guys have read the Superior Spider-Man and after it, some of the best comic book writing of the time.
Oh, yeah.
No spoilers, but just an absolute great comic book writing phenomenon. Read it if you haven't.
Especially for Spidey.
So yeah, it's one of the best Spider-Man. But that's what I'm saying is you can't do something like that, and where they're playing it, I don't know. I liked having Mysterio, but then not giving me a Mysterio that's Mysterio.
Yes and no. Again, that is a downfall of MCU Spider-Man villains, is that they are Tony Stark villains. And which is that was a bullshit thing I thought about Mysterio too.
I've never actually.
How are you gonna be mad at fucking Tony Stark and have all this hate and resentment when literally half of the people on your crew, and probably even you, asses, were fucking saved by him? Like that
multiple times.
Right. Then that kind of defeats the purpose of him calling your technology barf. you know, one time at a fucking college convention that nobody gave a fuck about.
Yeah,
probably.
he really held that, like...
Yeah, it's like, dude,
that grudge.
like, and, you know, he was fucking crazy too, you know, they showed him, but it was still, like, come on, man, this dude literally saved the motherfucking universe, like, you remember when aliens invaded this fucking, you remember, like, robots and
real
fucking...
aliens touching ground, like...
Weird fucking magic stones, and you remember that stuff? You remember?
Like,
that happened.
None of you are, like, cool with that?
And it's just like...
Hey, you remember when he was the one that snapped 6 billion people back into... or 3 billion people back into existence? No? No? Okay, just checking. But you're right. I agree that they're just not writing villains very well in the MCU, except for the big hitters. You know?
I mean,
you've seen really
Michael
cool...
Keaton was a great one, especially for Spider-Man. You know, I thought even as the Vulture, he played a vulture very well in the form of him.
Like taking the construction,
and
selling it.
Right, exactly. You know, living off the fucking superhero scraps, basically, and you know, then getting good enough to fly under Tony Stark's radar, and being caught by the little guy just by happenstance, exactly,
yeah.
And then being thwarted then by the little guy, you know, that was a good Spider-Man story.
Yeah,
and that is a good Spider-Man story.
I didn't get the feeling that was one that could be prolonged. I don't look forward to the next Vulture story. We told that story, it was very fun, it was very good, but it's over now. Is he going to be able to do it again? No, because the big guys are going to pay attention now.
Right.
You know, Vulture always hung out under the radar because he's just not good enough to get.
Right, and that was also the same thing I was gonna say with Rhino too. You know, like Rhino has never really been, until more recently, he's never really been that in depth of a villain. You know, he's always kind of just been a powerhouse that comes around that Spidey's got to stop.
Yeah, he's Spider-Man's super strength villain, which everyone's got one. I mean, and that's not to say that, like, Tombstone or some of his other super strength villains don't exist. I'm saying that that's just kind of, he's a brute force.
Right, and, so, just, that was just one thing I wanted to kind of go back on with him was...
No,
he wasn't really anything in The Amazing Spider-Man aside from,
just
a little
a point
bit of
that there's
comedic
villains.
relief, and
there's villains in this world.
That
He's been fighting them,
right?
And it made sense because with the introduction of Electro, you're building towards the Sinister Six.
Yeah. Right.
So.
And that was another thing too. Electro might have died, quote unquote, but I mean, how many times has Electro been blown up in comics?
Just to come back.
Right. You can't destroy energy. That's the fucking law of thermodynamics. You can't get rid of that shit. Where does it go?
I'm a law of thermodynamics.
You are, John.
Would you cut that?
But
so, all in all, we have our favorite Spider-Man in live action. So for me, it's Tobey Maguire. For you,
it's Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield. Does that portray to your favorite Spider-Man movie series? Do you think The Amazing is better than Sam Raimi, or vice versa, or?
Well, and that's the thing, I really, really, really like a lot of different things about all of them.
Mm-hmm.
The Raimi Spider-Man, I love, like, the action sequences are phenomenal.
Some of the
even
the
like
poster shots.
Yeah,
really.
and even like the little shit that he does, like that train fight with Dr. Octopus when he throws him into that bridge and he just like perfectly spirals himself through the little crack in there. Like that's some fucking Spider-Man shit, dude.
Yeah.
And that was like really cool.
I also really enjoyed that. I also liked in that series you get the scenes of him really understanding his powers. So, talked about all the time, brought up all the time.
Yeah.
Still absolutely hilarious. Fly.
Yeah.
What that just seems like something Peter Parker would do, and it's so funny.
Yeah, trying to figure out how to
get his webs to work.
Yeah.
And I know you're not a huge fan of the organic webs, but it exists. It's happened in comics, and to see a moment where it's funny enough that I would have loved to see that in a comic was great. So I agree. There's really greats in all of them. But
Or when Andrew Garfield, one of my favorite scenes was him, the day after that he got bit, when he was fucking just going through his house and he wakes up in the morning and he fucking smashes his alarm clock and he's going through trying to brush his teeth, rips the sink off, and
that one's pretty good.
That was
like the first time. You're gonna fuck everything up.
Exactly. And then when he was typing on his keyboard, then all the keys came out, stuck to his fingers. That was like, and then when he was like, when the spider sense was freaking him out,
that one was
that
good.
I thought was really good. Was like, just like the tiniest baby little noises all around him. He was just like hearing like super hyper aware to it. Like he was literally, when they showed the spider crawling on his skateboard, and they were like the audible tapping of its legs, that you heard, and it like.
It's creepy.
Yeah, it was creepy, but like you gotta think, if the spider sense really worked how it works in the comics, you would be able to hear somebody waving at you blindfolded from like in complete darkness from a football field away. Like, you would literally be able to hear the hairs on their hand moving in the wind. That's how, that's how, at least in comic books, that's how advanced.
He basically has a 360 omnipresence.
Oh, yeah.
Or not omnipresence, but he
it is omnipresence.
Well, he can't be anywhere all at
No,
once,
but
so
he can sense.
He understands everything that's going on.
I forgot what one it was. I think it was when he was fighting Deathlock or something. That dude with all like the missiles and the guns, the robot guy.
Yeah. Product of the 90s. In case you're curious.
I don't remember who he was explaining it to, but he explained that like if he was in like a Greek style Colosseum, and with like a 360-degree shooters, all with fucking machine guns, all pointed at him, in every row, and somebody said fire, and they all started shooting. He would be able to just instinctively know who pulled what trigger first, what bullet's going to explode out of what chamber first and become closest to him, where he needs to go to dodge those, and literally predict moves, all instinctively. Because Peter Parker doesn't really have full control.
It tells you.
It does it, and all while he's doing this, he is able to talk shit and fucking think about other stuff and focus on the main plan.
It is also proven that you can get past it.
Oh yeah, if you're fast enough, speedsters, he can perceive them coming at him. Like, he can sense that, but his body, his physical self is not fast enough to do that. A lot of teleporters, same thing.
Yeah.
He also can sense that shit.
He has a lot of problems with like proximity if you just kind of trick him.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of like mines and stuff tend to get past Spider-Man's spider sense. Yeah. It's because he's focused, or his sense is focused on something else.
I would argue Daredevil's is probably a little bit better than his, just because it's always on.
Daredevil has no filter to it.
Right,
is the way that I would put it. Is like Spider-Man still has to react to the spider sense. That's all Daredevil does.
Right, that's just his
Matthew Murdock is just a person that hears and knows everything around him. But it's a lot smaller. He gets like 30 feet, maybe.
It's not that big, but I mean, his hearing alone is very, very good.
It is. Yeah. But it that's off echoes and stuff like that. He's really fun. And speaking of Spider-Man and Daredevil, one of my favorite Spider-Man comics has Daredevil helping him.
Is that the Punisher one?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. The Punisher.
I think I have that.
I
actually.
wouldn't be surprised. I probably gave it to you.
That's when they're. That's when Punisher is shooting at him from down at the building, and they're both like hugging the wall, and Spider-Man's like, "So who makes your costumes?"
I would like to believe that
I think it is.
that is it, but I haven't read it in quite a long time, unfortunately, so I'd have to look into it. Quickly, how many of the TV shows, like the actual like cartoons, did you watch?
Probably all of them.
Probably all of them.
Yeah. I haven't seen Spider-Man and Friends with the.
I have not watched Spider-Man and Friends.
It's gay.
It sounds like it. What's your favorite of that? What would you recommend?
So I obviously the Spectacular Spider-Man is a lot of people's favorite. I grew up with the '90s cartoon.
That's how I grew up.
So that one obviously just for like pure nostalgia's sake
And it's good.
is
They told a lot of good
the
stories.
acting could be a little bit much.
It's 90s
at times.
acting.
Yeah, but
It's
I mean,
90s
and it's a
acting.
kid show, so I gotta give it at least that. But yeah, they did a lot of cool storylines. They had some cool crossovers with like the X-Men show, and a
Yeah,
couple
that was
other
fun.
things.
I
you know,
loved
that
the
they
X-Men
did.
show.
They even did a Spider-Verse, which was pretty cool with
remember
Madam
that.
Web
Yep.
and
And
that.
to show Madam Web was awesome.
Oh yeah. Now I
Yeah.
fucking hate Madam Web right now in comics. She's like a teenager. Fucking,
Well, the whole I hate to
Madam
tell you
Web's
this.
gone now.
Spider-Man has fallen off, Garrett.
Oh no, yeah, you
The
don't
news
say.
stories of Spider-Man have unfortunately not been great.
Except Life Story. Life Story was fucking awesome. I don't know if you read Life
I
Story.
did.
It was so good.
I think it was actually you who brought up the fact that they're going to give another Clone Saga.
Oh yeah, Miles Morales is
Yep,
getting another
I
Clone.
can't wait.
And you know what, dude? People shit on the Clone Saga a bunch, but
Which
nobody
one?
could fucking
Which
lie.
one?
All of them.
Yeah, because there's 4.
Yeah, but the first two were,
Well, there's gonna be
fucking great.
The first one is good.
No, I thought the second one was good too.
Well, that's because you don't read comics.
Okay. No, you know what, I like, and I think it's just because I like stories like that. Like, I like the, you don't know, and it's like, fuck, what the hell happened,
Yeah.
I like, I like that kind of writing, you know what I mean? It's just, it's cool to me, like, it's like that classic fucking, who's the clone, pointing the gun on him at a rooftop and you shoot the wrong one, and it's like, it's that classic fucking scene, and it's all just brought to life right then and there. It's great.
I was just messing with you. The Clone Sagas are fun. They do get a lot more shit than they probably deserve. I think that there's a couple times.
Are they convoluted as fuck?
Yes.
Do they not make sense sometimes?
Yes. Yes.
Or some things about them extremely stupid. Yes.
Incredibly.
But it's still cool.
Yeah,
and
you're right. When you look at it as that perspective from somebody who doesn't know, and that's a universe where you're just kind of got to accept things.
Yeah, right.
It was really it's a road to go down.
Oh yeah,
is the
no,
definitely way that I want to put
and
it.
like that's some shit that like you can't really read like out of order.
But it's also
or else
So
you
talking
won't
of
know
dark
what the fuck's
stories, we
going
talked
on.
about probably a little bit ago. This is the kind of stories that they could never do in live action movie, and it's unfortunate because you really would love to see it.
I think I know what you're gonna say. Craven's Last Hunt.
You're never gonna see Craven's Last Hunt.
Yeah, no, I never.
I
I
mean-
would love to see Craven's Last Hunt. That's fucking.
That's a snuff film, Garrett. I don't know how to tell
It
you that,
basically
but you'd be watching a snuff film.
You know what it
When's
is?
the last time
it's just
you read it?
a man achieving is what it is.
Man,
Oh, that is a real man making a real
eats
achievement.
spiders.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
To become the spider, Garrett. I don't think that's what you
So,
can film for an hour and a half.
If anybody doesn't know about Craven's Last Hunt, which is if you're listening to this, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but Craven's Last Hunt is basically a Spider-Man comic where Craven gets the Rochambeau on Spider-Man. He Well, so he believes. And that's what makes the comic book all, you know, the more like, God damn it. Because, so Kraven basically, you know, he's, you know, all about his thing. He's the hunter, greatest hunter ever. He can hunt anything because he hunts stuff. And he is, you know what, I'm going to prove to myself and everybody because Spider-Man's the ultimate prey. And I need to fucking be the ultimate predator and kill him. And then I'm going to bury him alive. And once when I do that, I'm going to eat spiders and then put on the black suit. Yep. Not the symbiote, just a black Spider-Man suit. And go fight crime dressed up as Spider-Man, better than Spider-Man could. And then when that's all complete, I'm going to go back to my house. I'm going to have me a nice drink by the fire. I'm going to go sit down next to my coffin, and I'm going to blow my brains out so that after I eject the shotgun shell out of the shotgun, that my body falls directly into the coffin, and then it closes.
So I didn't want to interrupt you. Good job saying spoiler alert to anybody who did want to read that comic.
Spoiler alert for a comic that came out almost
1987.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So sorry, guys. We have told you Kraven's Last Hunt. But, yeah, that probably could not be a movie. What's the one...
Probably not Superior Spider-Man either.
No. Probably not. Again, read it. I'm not going to spoil anyone for that one, but what's the one where Norman Osborn marries Aunt May?
What was that? That was Spectacular.
Possibly, but that's the one that I would love to see. Like, yeah,
what about the one where he rapes Gwen Stacy?
Yeah, that's definitely...
That was main continuity for a while.
Yeah, well then, you know, Marvel had its ups and downs.
And see, you know what, that's the thing, like, you know, that's why I always tell people, you know, people that just know the MCU or, you know, just superhero movies just by pop culture and shit, and they always say, like, oh yeah, you know, all these stories are so generic. I'm like, yes, because those are the ones that sell in fucking Hollywood. Yeah. If you want to read some good superhero stories, there's some Spider-Man stories that are worse than fucking Hostel, yo. Go fucking check them out.
I mean...
Spider-Man Reign? Remember that Spider-Man Reign?
Yeah, Reign's pretty good. There's a ton.
What's the one... It wasn't a what if, but what was the one where like all the real stuff happens in Marvel? Like when Peter gets bit, he dies of radiation poisoning.
So there's two of them. There's Marvels.
Marvels is what.
Which is a great So you're not thinking of that. Marvels is the one. It's actually beautifully written. It is a world much like Earth, where the same things that happen. And incredible stuff happens. The counterpart to that is one called Ruins. And that's what you're thinking
of. Oh, yes, okay.
And Ruins is one of the darkest Marvel comics in terms of just straight writing. He's right. Don't want to ruin too much about it, because if you want to see beautiful... Yeah, don't want to ruin Ruins. Beautiful artwork done by it.
And it's sad. It is.
It's a very sad story, but Peter Parker in it is bitten by a spider, and instead of turning into Spider-Man as we know him, he becomes a like radioactive spider beast that is just decaying and dying. Really horrific.
Then that's not what I'm talking about. That's something else. Oh no, yeah, that is.
Yeah, that is.
He's. Yeah. No, he's right.
Written by Warren Ellis. I cannot stress enough. You gotta really enjoy the artwork that comes with these books. I have a couple paper copies that I just absolutely love. I think that's about as much as I can talk about for when it comes to like the movies and the TV shows. comics, we could talk about it all day.
What was your favorite cartoon?
My favorite cartoon was probably the 90s.
The 90s one?
Yeah, I just grew up with it. It sticks today. I'd go back and watch it on Amazon.
Yeah, but Spectacular has such a great story and like development, you know.
At that point
Yeah.
in my life, I was too busy being introduced to new comics that were more like from I don't know. I fell into my like indie comic scene
Yeah.
right as I hit like 13, 14, and I was reading The Boys, I was reading Saga, I was reading some of the like stuff that came out of Dark Horse and Vintage and all of that.
Spawn.
Spawn's always been fun. I like
You ever watched the Todd McFarlane animated on HBO? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that was one of HBO's like original shows, and my dad didn't know it, but I knew his HBO code, so I was watching it. I was watching it on that.
Yeah, you know, the MTV one. There were some.
Censored, just too censored.
Yeah, right.
To be Spawn, it's just too censored.
Yeah, there was some cool stuff about it, I guess. They even had him have organic webbing in that show, but yeah, it was too teen drama type shit going on. You know what I mean?
It's MTV.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think NPH did a good job as Spider-Man. Drake Bell obviously did a decent job for kids, you know.
Oh yeah, MPH suffered to a poor time to make a Spider-Man show. That early 2000s, just poor CGI.
Well, that was supposed to be a continuation of the Raimiverse.
I know.
But I think they did it pretty piss poor.
Yeah. It was,
I mean, in comparison to the Raimi
animation
universe.
was just really bad. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was like 3D. You know, for its time, it was weird. But you know what?
Even for its time, it's bad.
Those were comics first. So whoever made them official Marvel Comics published first, and I remember seeing that.
Really?
And they were still in 3D.
So even I did not. See, this is what I'm saying when you know more about Spider-Man comics than I do.
But like the comics were in that 3D style, and I remember reading that, and I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? This is weird, you know? Because like literally, like it was like watching that show, but in comic fashion, you know, like somebody basically printed frames from that show. But it was weird. It was crazy. And so you know, it makes you think. You know, those comics probably weren't drawn. You know, like comics normally are. They were probably fucking created
which
3D.
is cool for the age.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
For the age.
You can it definitely add a little more dimension to the comics, but it was just different for the time, you know. Especially like being, like I said, into Ultimate Spider-Man, and that was, you know, one of my big things was the Ultimate Spider-Man.
So how did you feel when Miles Morales kind of came around?
At first I was indifferent about it. At first I didn't really like understand why they wanted to make another Spider-Man. But you know, then once his character developed more, I basically just, you know, I liked him, obviously.
Yeah,
He had a good story.
I got no hate for Miles Morales.
Yeah, he came from a really good background. But I mean, definitely at first when it happened, I was
like, what's going on?
Yeah, I was like, why is there another Spider-Man? And then, you know.
We knew you found out. Because of the incursions.
Yeah.
Because we have to kind of hit the reset button, but not hit the reset button because we're Marvel.
And you know what? That's the thing, dude. I think, like, with the Ultimate Universe, fucking Spider-Man was basically one of the big factors to why it stayed around for as long as it did.
Oh, people loved Ultimate
Right, and, you know, that was... When that incursion event happened, I think that was, like, one of the bigger...
Well, he just jumped ship. If you're... I know you've read it, but he just... Whoop!
Yeah, right.
Which was funny. Like, I remember just thinking, like... I was reading it at the time, and as one does, you predict what's going to happen. And I saw that the Ultimate Universe was the next Earth coming up, and I was like, Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Nick Fury, like all the people who are super popular. Welcome to 616. What a great way to do this.
Yeah, dude, fucking.
But I didn't see it coming beforehand. Like, I didn't think they were going to just, like, pop up the Ultimate Universe and be like, we're ending it.
Yeah, I mean, that shit was crazy. All the whole shit with the Illuminati and fucking.
The Illuminati gave us World War Hulk. And that's...
Yeah.
We have to thank everyone for that.
Yeah, I guess.
That was so good.
Yeah. Well, define good. Good story or good for Hulk?
Why can't it be just a little bit of both? Sometimes you need
I
to
mean, it
just
was
go...
until the Quinjet blew up and fucking...
No, listen.
Or the bomb on the ship blew up and killed his family.
You were right, the Quinjet.
Yeah.
It blew up everything.
Yeah.
At that point, semantics. The Quinjet blew up.
Yeah.
But I think that's another one that they could never really do.
What?
It would take so much backstory to build into.
Oh, the Quinjet?
Yeah. No, the World War Hulk.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were kind of doing it with fucking Ragnarok.
No, it's not. That's not.
No, it's
World
not,
War
but
Hulk.
he was, Gladiator Hulk.
Yeah,
know.
he was, but World
That was
Breaker,
such a small...
World
right.
Breaker Hulk.
But they can't show that in MCU.
I want to
I
see
know,
it.
but, like, that would be a power level greater
would
than
be
Thanos.
Absolutely terrifying is
Yeah.
what it should be, because holy hell.
Or what's the, when he's, like, black and he's got the fucking red shit blowing out of him. What was that version? Was that just in the show? That might have been just in the Ultimate Avengers show.
I unfortunately don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was some fucking just crazy rage mode that he went into. That might have just been in that fucking cartoon, though. But yeah, no, World Breaker Hulk fucking just... the tendons in his toes flexing are like fucking...
Nuclear bombs. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. He is absolutely terrifying. To the point that everyone realizes it.
I mean, what are you gonna do? Fucking... It's literally just obliterating everything just walking, you know?
Yeah, Seventh Day Juggernaut versus World Breaker Hulk would be
Yeah.
pretty great.
Yeah, see, that's somebody that doesn't get... At least not in any, like, media that he's been depicted in.
Yeah, you never
Yeah,
know.
Juggernaut.
Okay, so to anyone who doesn't know comics, Juggernaut is Charles Xavier's brother, who has an amulet of Sidorak.
Which is basically the entity of strength in the Marvel universe.
Yes,
I guess.
and to people who watch the MCU but don't know comics, Sidorak is also the bands that Doctor Strange wears.
Yeah.
Those are the bands of Sidorak, who gives him magical powers.
Yeah.
The amulet allows whoever's wearing it to become Juggernaut,
Yeah.
a being that once starts moving will not stop moving. Obviously, that's not 100% true. He is super powerful, but people have stopped
Yeah.
him. He has stopped of his own accord, stuff like that. But there's a comic book series known as the Seventh Day Juggernaut, in which Cain Marco the Juggernaut walks unabated for 7 days. And, once you get up to that much momentum, he doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So, it would be an absolutely amazing fight to watch that.
I think World Breaker Hulk would stop.
Probably would. Probably.
I don't think it would even be, like, too much.
I think it would. I think it would be a lot. But I think World Breaker Hulk just takes it. We've gotten so far from...
Yeah, we have gotten away from Spidey. Sorry, you guys. Just comic books are too cool to not talk about.
Yeah.
Alright, well, we'll wrap it up here. So, thank you, everybody, for watching this week, or listening, whatever you're doing. Be sure to follow me on all my social media platforms and like this podcast if you're listening to it on YouTube. Thank you again, John, for coming to this week for the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to take this time to do a quick plug for both me and you. One of the reasons we had me on is this week we are going to be talking about Ambient Forest, which is a production company that both me, Garrett, and a buddy of ours have started. We are going to be doing the audio on this video. We're going to be doing the audio on the rest of the videos from now on. We're going to be doing some of the video editing and pretty much all around everything stuff. So that's my little plug for Ambient Forest Productions, which we're going to be putting up a page pretty soon on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. And another kind of thing that I wanted to discuss was if you guys would much rather have these podcasts in the continuing format of how I'm doing them now and just releasing the audio with some pictures, or if you would like a video of me actually talking, and especially when there's two of us in the same room as one another, it would have probably been a little cooler to have us both seen on camera talking. So if that's
talking to you guys, really.
Right, exactly. So if that's something that you guys would rather have, be sure to put that down in the comments, your suggestions. But yeah, also as far as Ambient Forest Productions and the Blood Spider go, we are still in production phases of the show, but we do plan on releasing other stuff. We have a sketch comedy series that's going to be starting up, a couple horror shorts, and some minor action sequences and everything. So those will be out first and foremost before anything else. So yeah, I will provide links for all of that when that's all ready. So make sure you guys like and subscribe to Ambient Forest, and I'll provide any of John's links as well in the bottom. Thank you for listening again to the Bloodcast, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.